Hello to everyone who has already arrived. Just give us a couple of minutes and we will get started. Right, I am going to get us going here. I'm Brad Richard. Thank you all for being here today to help me launch Turned Earth into the world. I have a few brief thanks. First, to everyone at LSU Press who helped to shape and produce this book. I absolutely could not be happier. Also, special thanks to Sunny Rosen, who is facilitating this event. And finally, deep gratitude to all of my friends and family who have supported me along the way. I'll be reading 9 poems, one of them fairly long, for about 24, 25 minutes in all. There will then be a short Q&A, and you may drop your questions into the chat at any time as they occur to you. There will also be a link to purchase copies of the book. Before I get started reading, let me orient you just a little bit so you know what you're in for. There are three main strands in the book: gardening and grief, being an artist, and community. Whether that community exists in a garden, in a classroom, or in a city. I'm going to start with the first poem in the book, which is called How I Am Whole. Some days I just want to be an idea: form, duration, écriture. But my body keeps getting me lost in things. Mist so white it brightens my classroom windows before thickening into rain. The slow darkening of rue in its iron pot as I stir until my shoulder aches. The hidden heat in carnation petals. And I love sex so much. I believe the body does just fine without ideas. Yesterday, an artist asked me for the story of my body. As her studio's skylight filled with snow, I remembered a porch in late summer and me, 6 or 7, standing shirtless by the screen door, feeling the glow of the whole day inside me and thinking, I want to remember this. Going to stay a little bit in childhood here. The next poem, which is called Then Again. While the world ends, burns, drowns, starves, I remember summers at the house my mother rented in the country outside Tuscaloosa, a two-story log cabin built by a judge for his wife, two sons, and two daughters. Two wings with connecting bedrooms upstairs in each, divided by a high-ceilinged room with a fieldstone fireplace where we spent nights reading. Tolkien for me, Sayers or Christie for Mom. Sometimes out of the hush came a staccato click, 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 wood-boring beetles working their way through the walls. Killer invasives, just like kudzu, Mom said. But now I think they'd always been there. Late one autumn afternoon, Mom came home to find the screen door across the porch to find the screen across the porch slashed through and shallow gashes in the door frame. A visit from one of the judge's daughters who drove from her apartment a few towns over to remind us that she had grown up here and it was hers alone. That first summer, Mom, tending her own grief for her mother, often shut herself in her bedroom all day while I wandered the surrounding woods, pines swaying in the hot breeze, creaking and rustling, making my neck tingle like someone was following me, grit getting in my shoes, irritating my toes. I'd circle back to the enormous yard, gone half wild, yet half recalling its old blackberry brambles and weedy beds of rosemary, marjoram, sage, names Mom taught me. Back inside, I'd sneak a few Nilla wafers from the pantry, head upstairs to reread The Lord of the Rings. One morning, I dreamed the elves came to wake me in my bed. Spread between us on my rumpled bedclothes lay their rings, all three, their gift. For me? Really? There they shone. Yes, said the elves, a little sadly. We're done with them. You need them more than we do. And they smiled somberly, watching my hands rush through the sheets in whose furrows the rings were lost, as I woke, still searching. Where do the worlds go we never held? Maybe we'll just haunt whatever we can't imagine comes after us. Like me, now, emptying my dehumidifier's bucket in my garden at dawn, picking basil to flavor my eggs. Like many of us, I was a busy writer during the lockdown portion of the pandemic. And there was one day when I was kind of bored and didn't know what to write about. So I just thought, I'm going to write a bowls. So this is Ode to Bowls. Here's a nested set of five. Tan, sturdy, rough-lipped. My mother bought at a flea market from a weeping widower. And there was once a chipped porcelain sink where baby eye was bathed, and a marble font where sinners' fingers dip, but not mine, not in years. I thought I knew the washbowl and pitcher, gold rimmed, my mother kept on a stand in my father's old bedroom. Heirloom, I thought, until after her funeral, I pulled from the pitcher's mouth a foxed paper tag, $49.50 in cursive pencil. At the intersection of Jefferson and Claiborne, I roll down my window to place $5 in a bowl a man holds toward me. What is a bowl? Half a bubble, glowing, blown from molten glass, clay thrown on a potter's wheel, then fired and glazed, always fire in every bowl's making, always a cooling to harden the soft shape. In the kitchen, I drape a towel over the bowl on the counter where bread swells with a billion breaths. I stack cereal bowls in a cabinet like skulls in an ossuary, and place on the pantry's highest shelf broken halves of bowls I've loved and might glue whole again. There's the cat's water bowl that says dog. There's the resin-lined bowl that fills my head with smoke I release like a prayer. And here is the bowl I live in, reclaimed basin of a marsh where Chitimacha hunters caught snipe for Creole housewives until the railroad came, tracing the basin's rim, then crossing it, parcel by parcel, marked off for houses, schools, libraries, streets where potholes are bowls, sand and gravel never fill, but water will. The next poem is the long one that I mentioned at the beginning. Let me just say a little bit about it. My mother died almost exactly 10 years ago, rather suddenly. And in going through her stuff, I found this folder. It says confidential materials enclosed. Um, this was a huge find for me. Um, and I astonishingly wrote this sonnet sequence that I'm about to read, this sonnet crown, or modified sonnet crown, over a period of about 4 days. And my birthday fell in the middle of all this, and it's referenced in there. So this is Matrilineation, homage to Nell Parker, 1944 to 2015. Also, I will be quoting lines from my mother, and I'll use air quotes for that. The fourth poem, she edited one line, so I'll do a strikeout like that to indicate the edit. Matrilineation, homage to Nell Parker. 1. I'm trying to imagine you imagining me, finding at the bottom of a plastic storage bin, under clippings from your daily camera column, under stray snapshots of family I never knew, under rust-stained doilies into your baby shoes, your life spread out around me on the floor. This folder, confidential materials enclosed. Your poems. I was what, 11? You took them out to read to me, then burst into tears, ran to your study, left them splayed beside me on the window seat. Summer light, fresh as your mother's death that spring. Imagine me finding your words, losing mine. I know the typeface, that old royal you gave me, and a mind that seeks with words to say these thoughts. 2. A mind that seeks with words to say these thoughts that wander as in a maze. I hear your heart, iambic, broken, rhythm remains. At your memorial in the Methodist church basement, I read a few of yours aloud. Should have stopped myself from adding Williams, Dickinson, one of my own. Suited, I sweated. Your brother wore a Marine's tee. Stories he told me. Wild teenage you sneaking out all night and dating my dad. Stories your poems from your second marriage tell. There was a woman who acted like a wife. I'd write you a love poem if I could. Instead, I've cleaned the house. I'd write a poem that tells all the thoughts I have to share, but rather put a clean ashtray by your favorite chair. 3. You put a clean ashtray by your favorite chair, read true crime, ignored the phone, smoked. 3 marriages left you happiest alone. The last leached your pension, but you reclaimed your name. Were 30 cats too many? On my visits, their reek choked my sleep. Sleepless, you ordered gems from jewelry TV to hoard in dresser drawers. Appraised. Fake. I found baskets of handed down kids' clothes you'd laundered for the next needy family. Checks to the Mart Messenger to cover Catfish Hut's ads when the owner's granddaughter was sick. Regrets? None, you said, but I'd write a poem if only I could say words that won't come out. Instead, I chafe and tease, knowing that you know what I mean. For I chafe and tease. I learn what you mean, heartsick from what you learned in the edits. Sometimes I think I'd like to be a spy and hide behind trees and catch 40 thieves. Sometimes I'd rather be a star of Broadway shows and buy my clothes at a bazaar. I've wanted to be so many things, sought after by kings. And when I've thought of these, I've been them in dreams. And really, it seems that it's nice to be me. And really, it seems there's no future in it. 5. And really, what future is there but this parsing of our past? 13 sheets of typing paper, 8.5 by 11, 6 by 9, most dated May 1975. Alone in a house deep in Alabama pines, your husband away for work in Birmingham, you used what you had. Grief left you time. Clatter of keys all morning. A walk in the yard. Weeding the garden where you heard a toad setting up shop by a tomato plant and hurried back inside to write it. Dad dropped me off in June for the summer. You came out of your study, gathered your poems, shut this folder I hold. I can't. Maybe I read too much. Mother always said so. She's gone now, so I can't ask her why. 6. You're gone now. And now. I can't ask why you wrote confidential materials enclosed across this folder, like a spell to let you forget her, the one who wrote. I can guess which poem you drafted last, scarred with strike throughs, felt tip over typescript. What is it? What's wrong? I scream but make no sound. Talk with me, touch me. I could tell you things. Why the search for Mr. Goodbar? A plug for the emptiness. Let us pray. Watch the fruit fall in on itself. You had to leave her there with me on that window seat while you wept in your study. You had to go on with yet without her. She was yet was not my mother. Years later, that line of mine, you said you kept rereading. To be is yet to be imagined. 7. You said you kept rereading. To be is yet to be imagined. Words that now come to me as if they were yours, our words together, apart from us themselves. Complete within itself, my soul becomes involved with trees, reaching silently toward the sun. It's sunset. It's my birthday. I love sunset and spending my birthday writing all day and never having more than coffee gone cold, an open dictionary, these trees going bare. I know the dishes are stacking themselves in the kitchen sink. But look, the berries are turning dark. Let's go watch them. This is me imagining you, imagining me. I'm going to shift to a couple of poems more about community. Another pandemic poem. One Friday afternoon, New Orleans, June 2020. And this is a shout out to my neighborhood and my lovely neighbors. A tuba's thump and pulse sends ripples through lockdown hush. A drum taps, a trumpet jumps in, calling me to stop refreshing pandemic data graphs and clips of George Floyd protests. And to honor my friend still recovering from being hit in the head by a tear gas can that did not exist, cops claim, so was not fired. To honor a high school friend's mother, a nurse who died in a hospital bed one floor down from her dying husband, I put on my mask, walk outside to follow the brass band's blare to the house whose porch is their stage. They are glad to see us. Me, my husband, our neighbors Dean and Barb, Amy and Greg. Moms with strollers, a pink-haired, pink-masked girl, and the friends who push her wheelchair. We sway, dance, drop dollars in the tip bucket. A silver-haired woman in a tie-dye dress steps closer, hands raised, as the tuba player blows and sweats and the band swerves from Liza Jane into something none of us has ever heard. This moment's answer to our need. A cruiser crawls by, light bar flashing. The next one is lapis lazuli. So two things here. One, sometimes you go back and you reread a poem that you once thought you loved and you have a different reaction. So that's sort of behind here. Um, Also, unfortunately, you're going to have to hear me sing a little bit. And this poem is for my dear friend, Dana Sonnenschein. Hi, Dana. Lapis lazuli. Among all the unimaginable things, imagine Shuggy Otis at 17, composing Strawberry Letter 23, playing three kinds of guitar, two kinds of piano, also bass, organ, drums, and bells, and singing every part, harmonizing with himself. All through the morning rain, I gaze, the sun doesn't shine. Rainbows and waterfalls run through my mind. For 4 minutes and 2 seconds, I believe there is no world without music, without genius to compose and play it, conjuring a garden where we sit and share smoked trout and a white Bordeaux, telling stories about the good in us. The song ends. I play it again. Nothing lasts while we do. 250,000 years of evolution went into making Shuggy, and into our making 250,000 acres of New Mexico burn, and 1,000,000 more tons of Greenland's ice melt into acidifying seas, and theocratic thugs place liens on every uterus, and a white kid nursed on 4chan in pandemic lockdown decides to save his race with lots of guns. Blue flower echo from a cherry cloud. In my pocket, I keep a smooth nub of lapis lazuli, tumbled and polished, found at an herbarium in Philadelphia. One more nub among hundreds heaped in a basket, while the friend I was with selected herbs for spells that keep her whole. Later, we bought takeout barbecue and ate it sitting on the sidewalk, amazed to look at the crowded market we'd just left and imagine it as it was a few months past, as it might be again any day now. Locked, empty, its air, no one's breath. Pitted gray flecks my fingers worry, holy blue mottled with milkier hues. Remind me I'm still here. I'm going to close out with three poems that are all more or less in the garden. First one is Craft Talk for Carolyn Hembry. It must have rained last night. My pineland mallow is blooming. Pale yellow eye, wide at sunrise, it receives my image as I pass on my way to pick parsley. My pineland mallow's flower looks like an okra flower, and okra, too, is a mallow, but not my mallow. It doesn't mind if you prefer the salvia's red tongues or calendula's buttery suns. Carpenter bees dip and suck all day in blown oregano plumes in basil, germander, and gaura. Slow mallow. It takes days to make a green pod silvered with whiskers. Every morning, one bee pays one visit to this holy corolla. My what? Asks my mallow. You should leave the garden, it tells me. Go to a museum. Have lunch with a friend. Hasn't it been long enough? And my last two. First is The Gardener 2. There is The Gardener 1, but you will have to read the book for that one. So, The Gardener 2. My grandmother laughed when I'd squat while playing in the garden, poking a spoon at the dirt, a little prissy as I plucked fleabane's puny starburst blooms to decorate graves I dug for pill bugs, whose armor coiled shut when my fingertip pushed them under. They opened, hauled themselves out. I wiped my fingers on the grass. Hours later, the smell of earth, or was it me, lingered. My husband laughs when I come in for lunch, boots muddy, knees caked, face smudged, babbling, fritillaries, carpenter bees, and we need more bags of soil for the white sage and salvias I'll plant. Boots by the door, clothes by the washer, he says, ladling out bowls of gumbo. I kiss his neck, inhale his spice, and again fleabane's blooms turn to white tufted globes. My breath blows bare. Zinnias. There is never enough time to see everything in the museums we visit most often. I planted 10 packets of seeds, and only these sprouted, grew 5 feet high, and blew face down in last night's storm. Watching my husband chop an onion, I think of all the poets no one reads, rooted in air, rooted in smoke, washed away in silt-bearing floods. Don't worry, it's firm, I call out to my 4-year-old godson as my right leg sinks to the knee in the mound of dirt I'm climbing. Thank you very much.
Are you ready to take questions now?
Yes, Sonny, I am.
Okay, great. Our first question is about the theme of gardening in this book and in your work. So as this is something that comes up a lot in this collection, can you talk about with your process how it factors in? So will you think of a poem while gardening, or are you sort of channeling that energy while you're writing your poems, or sort of how does that actually play into the creation process of your poems?
That is a great question with a complicated and messy set of answers, I think. Yes, I love doing a lot of thinking when I'm gardening, especially when I'm doing super tedious tasks like weeding or, breaking up stuff to go into the compost pile. And I can just stand there and think about stuff. Um, and that particular kind of concentration is often the same kind of concentration that I'll bring to just sitting and staring, looking at the page and thinking about it. Um, yeah, I also, I became a Louisiana Master Gardener in 2022 or 2023. I'm forgetting now. Um, and deepening my knowledge of gardening has also really influenced my work. So Ashley Gill and I did a lot of correcting of mistakes I had made in early drafts of one of my poems, identifying poems, plants, and things. So yeah, it's the gardening feeds the poetry, but I think in some ways it works the other way too. So.
Thank you. Our next question here is about writing sort of in response to or in conversation with your mother's creative work. What does that process look like for you in terms of wanting to both respond to the work and also be influenced by it and also develop your own voice, right? How do you sort of balance all of those elements of sort of relating to a parent's creative work while also needing to create something of your own?
Sure. Um, so so first, I think I need to talk a tiny bit about writing in the immediate wake of grief, which, as many of us know who have done it, it's often really, really hard. And we write stuff that we don't know what to do with. Um, I tried first writing about um, my mom in an essay. That was very long and very, very bad. And I let that sit for a long time. And then during lockdown, I pulled it out again and reread it and realized that I was really talking about mom and I really needed to be in conversation with mom's words. Um, so that was the spark that got that to work. And of course, it also got me thinking about my own growth as an artist. It's like, I'm very fortunate. My father is a painter, so I lived with someone who was making art every single day. My mom was a huge reader and very encouraging with my work. And discovering how seriously she took her writing, and only realizing that after her death was really poignant. And it made it made doing my work feel even more like I was doing it in part for her. Um, yeah, I hope that answers the question adequately.
I think it does. Thank you. Our next question is about your previous collection. So this is your fifth collection now. So having written such a extensive body of work, how do you view these books as in conversation with one another or evolving from one to the next? Where does this sort of fit in the lineage of your collections? Obviously, the most recent, but what other kind of connective threads do you see between them?
So my first book was called Habitations, and I feel like that book and this book have a lot of things in common. When I first started writing the poems that went into Turned Earth, this was before Mom died. I was really thinking of this as my domestic project. So I was writing about stuff around the house, writing about, me and my husband. Um, and Habitations was, in some ways, in a similar vein. Um, Motion Studies, my second book, started off as an ekphrastic project. Um, There are quite a few ekphrastic poems in habitations. There are also ekphrastic poems of a sort in, oh, well, not true ekphrastic poems actually in Parasite Kingdom, which was my fourth book. There are no truly ekphrastic poems in Turned Earth, which is interesting. There are also no persona poems in Turned Earth, which is also a feature in many of my earlier poems in all four of those earlier books. Leaving out Butcher's Sugar, which is the was a very personal book, but also I was retreating into persona in order to deal with some personal stuff. Um, I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling. I need to go back to motion studies to say that ekphrastic project was interrupted by Hurricane Katrina and then um, became my Katrina book in many respects. So dealing with art and disaster. Um, I feel like Turn to Earth is a place where I have found a voice I am really, really comfortable inhabiting as like my voice. I feel like I've done a lot of playing around with different kinds of voices in my earlier books, and you know, I love much of my earlier work. But it really did feel very much like I had settled into myself at a particular point in time with this one. And I think that's kind of the direction I'm going in next.
Thank you. So yeah, as a follow-up to that, can you talk to us about what you're working on next and what you're thinking of for future projects?
Sure. So I've been dithering around a bit since finishing Turned Earth, sort of not sure what I want to do. I have some fiction projects that I'm working on, but I keep wanting to get back to poems and I keep drafting things. And the poems that I'm drafting right now that I'm excited about are loosely speaking, they are eclogues. So there are voices in there that are me. There are voices in there that are these imagined figures in a mid 21st century version of a pastoral landscape is. Um, and it's giving me a way to write about things that are both personal and much larger concerns. So yeah, I'm excited to see where this goes. It's in early stages.
Thank you. All right, well, we've got a lot of comments here in the comment section, which you'll be able to check out at the end of the reading. But I think that is our last question, so we can go ahead and say thank you and goodbye to the audience.
Thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate your being here.